Yesterday, the developers did a 5th anniversary live stream for Rise of Kingdoms, and they had a section where they announced the future of the game, including a new civilization for which they launched these teasers, including information about upcoming KvKs, a complete graphics overhaul where they are remaking the maps from scratch. Stick around in this video for a summary of all the things they talked about and what you need to know. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and over the course of the 2-hour live stream yesterday, there was a ton of stuff that the developers revealed, and I'm just going to give you a summary so that you don't have to watch the whole thing. You can just get these really sweet takeaways from the part where they were talking about what's in the future for this game, and they went all the way through 2024. This includes releasing more KvKs with smaller camps, and we'll talk about this in just a second. We talked about a graphics overhaul, the new civilization, new game modes, and revisiting old game modes, easier alliance management, a Hall of Fame system on the Lost Temple, and even a Grand Prix tournament. So we'll go through all of that, and you can use the timestamps in the description to jump to any one part you're most interested in. Let's first start with KvKs, where they said they're going to have smaller camps and a new system for forming kingdom teams. And this, to me, is both exciting and a head scratcher. And let me explain. Communities need to be a certain size to be functional in any game. And in Rise of Kingdoms, the community actually needs to be pretty large to be a healthy kingdom. You need to have one alliance, I would say, that's pretty full in order to really be a healthy sort of community size for doing the things you need to do in this game. And we saw in other games when they shrink the required community size, weird things happen. This took place in World of Warcraft. I used to raid. There were 40-person raids. Then they released 10-person and 25-person raids. And you need a critical mass of people. And when you start requiring less than that critical mass of people to sort of maintain your community, things get really weird and communities become very fragile. Easy for them to fall apart. You end up short a player. You can't actually complete the content until you get a replacement. But nobody wants to be a sub that sits on the bench and so on. So why am I telling you this? Well, I don't know if these are sub-stories within KvKs of things that you do with 20 people, but I would be pretty worried if by a smaller camp and new system for forming kingdom teams, they meant that within an alliance, you pick the 20 friends total that you want to play KvK with. I don't know. Maybe this is just a side event thing. And if it is, I think that could be pretty cool if it's kind of like an Ian's Ballads. But if this is saying that we're going to have a 4-person KvK, I don't know. This is probably just a set of sub-events that are going to happen within KvKs, if I had to guess. But they did say a bunch of things about KvK. For example, there's going to be KvKs that focus on development periods and battle periods. They also mentioned that there's going to be a KvK that has new alliance skills, and that these are going to be really critical to your progress. And I do think that the alliance skills, there's certainly opportunity to offer something new and creative here. They also said that, use of these skills is really critical, and that many new stories are in the pipeline, but that they feature asymmetric camps. So asymmetry means the camps are not equal, and I have really weird feelings about that. How do you balance it if there's asymmetry? You have to have a balance across multiple camps, I would assume, or a side has an advantage and a disadvantage, and each side comes with sort of pros and cons that in the end balance out. I think it's tricky to make asymmetric camps that ultimately end up being sort of an even, fair battle. But, when they do work out that way, where each camp has a strength and a weakness, I think that could be cool. They're going to bring in more historical elements, so presumably more things like the Siege of Orleans and events like that, and also revamped siege battles. I don't know if that means siege units will become relevant again, but I do think that even though they didn't talk about range combat, or at least I don't remember it, that moving into 2024, they're just going to continue to push on the relevance of siege units slowly over time until eventually it's oh yeah, these are meta and good and enjoyable. That's my perspective. They also mentioned that there's going to be some new alliance buildings, and I think that new alliance buildings could be really exciting. If you've been following my channel, you may have seen the Grand Cross Age of Titans videos I was making. In that game, there are a number of things that you could sort of create as an alliance building, like a monster tower that, summoned special in this case, it'd be barbarians for Rise of Kingdoms that had special loot. There was a resource tower that would spawn in special resources. There's a ton of different things that you could make for Alliance buildings that I think would be really exciting. So all in all, I am excited for the changes that they mentioned to KvK. In fact, they even mentioned that they're going to update old stories, like addressing the fog in Heroic Anthem. Because let me tell you, I don't know, man. Fog is like maybe okay the first time you do it. But like the third or the fourth time, you start to question why you're allocating your time this way. And that's not a good feeling that players would have when they're playing a game, right? So I think fog exploration is something that takes a lot of time, but players don't actually derive a lot of enjoyment from. So I'm glad that they're looking at stuff like that and optimizations overall. So this brings us to something more exciting, which is the new civilization. And players have been suggesting Persians, Mayans, and I was actually not familiar with, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Khmer, a whole civilization Chisgule doesn't know about, GG. But they have already decided their 15th civilization for the game. And it's kind of crazy that, like, it's September and they're already starting research and have completed the research. And I wouldn't expect the new civilization until, like, summer of next year. Unless they're accelerating the timeline for bringing in new civilizations. They say it's ready in 2024 at the earliest. They didn't even say, like, the beginning of 2024. They're just like sometime in 2024 at the earliest. So this is definitely not happening this year. And typically we see these updates in the summer. In fact, if you want to see a card up in the top, I was invited to participate in an advertisement with the Pawn Stars for the release of the Egyptian civilization. It was freaking awesome. So anyways, new civilization, 2024. But what is it? Well, they left us with this teaser. And weirdly enough, they said players want the Mayan civilization. And I actually think it is possible that Mayan civilization is what we're getting, although I'm not fully convinced. And there's a couple things I want to kind of call your attention to. First of all, the helmet design over here. What is going on with this helmet? Well, I'm going to show you something that you're going to go, maybe that does align with that helmet design. And what's going on with this building? Well, I have a thought for what this is, and I'll show you the picture, and you're going to be like, oh, okay, maybe that is that. And then we're going to get a close look at these weapons. These weapons are really interesting. I mean, this looks like a sword of sorts, but the way he's gripping it is really weird, really high up on the handle there. And then this looks like some sort of a curved club, spiky thing. And it looks like he's got some sort of mane. So let me show you what this could be. If it were the Mayan civilization featured as that building, I could totally see this potentially being the structure. Like, it looked like they took this picture, but they had it at a slightly different angle. This could be the building that we were looking at, and this would be your sort of city hall. Here's a picture of some of the weapons from the Mayan civilization, and I want to call your attention to two of them. One is this one right over here, where I said he was kind of holding it high up on the handle. This could be the weapon that they were sort of holding, the bladed weapon on the one hand. And then that curved, spiky weapon, sort of second from left, could be what they were holding in the other hand. And I actually feel like that looks pretty close to me. Also, the figure all the way on the left could be right over here, Lady Cabell. This picture in particular to me, with the helmet design, looks pretty compelling as to like, hey, that could be it. Although what she's holding here is a little bit different than what I think they had in the picture with like the sort of spear. So there could be something to that. I mean, there is a picture of a spear over here, but that spear design certainly looks a little bit different than, you know, what we had in the outline. So I don't know, maybe we're reaching that maybe it's the Mayan civilization. But for those of you that have been following along with the sort of commanders that are in the game, we already have a Mayan commander in the game. Did you know that? This is Pakal, who is the son of eternal glory in his listing in game. But if we get a look, he was an important king, a Jah, is I think the word they use, over the important Western Mayan border. So we already do have a Mayan hero in the game. It is possible that we will see more. It's a little weird that they list him as other, but maybe they would change it to say Mayan. I don't know. If we look at this spear design, hold on. That spear design sure does look awfully familiar from the picture. I actually feel more and more confident that Mayan is what it is. Big shout out to Gumbo from my Legendary Guard, who sent me a bunch of the pictures that I actually showed you, and also was the one who was pretty confident that, like, yeah, Mayan looks like it's it. Because I think that is right. I think now the more that I look at this, Mayan is probably right. So Gumbo, big shout out, buddy. I appreciate you. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Let me jump back to the next thing they announced, which is a graphics overhaul. So here you can see they talk about the complete comprehensive graphics overhaul, and the world map is going to be completely changed. And to ensure that it looks good and works well, they're actually redoing the whole damn thing. The mountains will get 3D models and textures. They said the vegetation is going to be denser. Reflections and lighting will see substantial improvements, particularly in water. So this is really exciting. Even the UI elements and interactions are going to be more dynamic, which I don't know what exactly that's going to mean, but improving the interface sounds like a huge win to me. So they're going to have those in the earliest in Q4 of 2023. I would assume 2024 is more realistic. And they're even going to do the same for the commanders. So like, the commanders get it. Of course, I have a pretty good idea of what this is going to look like. It's probably going to look exactly like Call of Dragons. So let me show you just how good the graphics look over there. So here we are in Call of Dragons. And my hope is that the graphics would start to look more like this, where the mountains look, I mean, just a lot better. Okay. And I'm not saying this is the greatest art on the face of the earth, but when I flip back over to Rise of Kingdoms, you're going to be like, oh, wow. Yeah, that is way different, okay? So in terms of what things will look like, if I just get a look all the way around over here at some of like the special locations, right? Like, stuff looks pretty cool here compared to the sorts of things you see in Rise of Kingdoms. Imagine if the Lost Temple looked more like this, right? This is a dwarven stronghold, but my point is that I think it's going to look a lot cooler, and even the sort of heroes or commanders on the field are going to look cooler. So all in all, I think very exciting to see these changes. In fact, let me just show you some water really quickly. I'll find a water feature, right? So water will probably look more like this for perspective. A lot better than what it is today. Now, brace yourself for impact, okay? Here's Call of Dragons. Let me show you where Rise of Kingdoms is at. I mean, it's a little bit of a rough transition, right? Like the water, the trees, the grass, I mean, the mountain, like it's just not quite the same. So I'm glad that we're seeing a graphics overhaul in Rise of Kingdoms. This is, I think, a huge win. It's something I'm very excited for. And I think breathes fresh life sort of into the future of the game. As long as the gameplay is good and the graphics remain relevant, I think the game's life can be very long. And other than Call of Dragons, there aren't really a lot of games that are effectively competing with Rise of Kingdoms with the way that open field combat works. It's just very rare to find a game that does that. This brings us to the event 2.0 changes. This includes the Wall of Arrows, War of the Ruins, Barbarian Keeps, Tempest Clash, Ceroli Assault, and they're going to add new events, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But the Wall of Arrows event, I don't know, it's like not all that engaging, I find. It's not all that strategic. I think it could be fun, but it's more of like a one-off puzzle thing than like a repeat event as it's designed. But I think they could add more levels and could make it fun. War of the Ruins, the problem with that is that it's like way too zoomed in. Like no one wants to play as zoomed in as it is. And it actually just like, it kind of hurts to look at it. It's so zoomed in and try to play. I'd love to see that get even just the ability to zoom out so you can actually, play at a level of view that you're interested in, I think would be great. The Barbarian Keeps I haven't done in forever. It's just kind of repetitive and you get a reward. Tempest Clash, I'm not sure what I'd say about Tempest Clash. I really would have liked sea battles to have become more of a thing in Rise of Kingdoms, and to be a part of like the rest of the game. But the way that Tempest Clash works, I don't know, like you have to have a really good group to play with it. And so many people are so bad. It's a little bit painful. I actually find that of all these events, Ceroli Assault is the most enjoyable. Just Zerg the boss. And for some reason, it's kind of fun to just Zerg a boss. I actually can't explain to you why, but it's rewarding. It's fast. You don't have to deal with idiots really, because you can just Zerg the boss. I actually think of all the events, I find Cerulean Assault to be the most relaxing of all these. But, you know, I do prefer if events are a little bit challenging. So all these are getting a 2.0. And they're releasing a new guild versus guild feature, which is basically a playoff of Sunset Canyon. Now, for those of you that have been following my channel for a very long time, you may recall that I used to play Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. And they had, I think it was called Territory Wars in that game, where essentially you have got a map where there's 2 guilds, one on each side, and there are different nodes that are defended. And you basically set up teams of troops and combinations to defend different nodes. So the way this would work in Rise of Kingdoms, I assume for the Canyon battle, for this guild versus guild system, is that there'll be different nodes. There's a number of teams that get set up to defend each location. And then the teams that you use to defend, you potentially can't use to attack. And there's some sort of attack defense going on where you sort of clear through their defenses and try to defeat more of the enemy's teams. And, you know, different locations could give more points, and there's just a whole bunch of ways that they could do it. So I think that this could be okay. I'm just not all that excited about Canyon in general. So the double down on Canyon as the GvG is kind of like, I guess so. Like, I can see why they're doing it, but for me personally, Canyon is like not the most exciting. It's based on Sunset Canyon, so I think I'm pretty close on how this would work. Requires 2 opposing alliances to attack and defend against each other, and we have plans to introduce other gameplay elements. Oh, this is kind of cool. I didn't mention this. Kingdom Bosses. Kingdom Bosses is also something where I think they're taking from Call of Dragons, and I think that's a very good take. Kingdom Bosses are very fun. I think that would be really cool. The way that a behemoth fight works in Call of Dragons is it feels like you're raiding, like I was in, like, you know, I used to do in World of Warcraft. Whereas these, you know, holy sites and Rise of Kingdoms are like, all right, set the rally and do a few things for a minute or so, battling, you know, I don't know, like weird guys standing on pyramid-y things, and then you win. So I look forward to some Kingdom Bosses is what I'm trying to say. Oh, and I can't believe this is actually happening, but they're going to add fishing. Like they just like one-liner on this one. They were like, yeah, we're adding fishing. So you're going to be fishing in your home kingdom? I don't know why games need fishing. I really don't. It's a time killer, but like, am I going to fish for armaments? Am I going to fish for food? What am I fishing for? I don't know, man. They're also adding a roguelike game mode. That actually is maybe the most exciting thing, where you use your commanders to play through a roguelike. That could be pretty cool. My impression of roguelike games is that they're really, really difficult typically, and you're given a lot of very difficult choices. So, you know, maybe there's easier modes of roguelike games, but my impression of what makes a roguelike game good is that you have a difficult series of challenges that you have to maneuver through, and you have to make sacrifices to win. And I don't know how well that'll fit with a mobile gaming audience, but I'm kind of hyped for it, actually. Of all the things, that roguelike could be the most fun strategic thing that they add. This brings us to alliance management, and I feel like we already got some of the alliance management stuff, so they maybe filmed this a while ago, where they talk about managing your troops that are currently building flags, which is like very true. The changes they made for that are really, really good. Also, there are changes they mentioned for you know, bringing people into alliances, block list, pass list. We got that already. But this next thing is a Hall of Fame. We got to talk about the Hall of Fame for KvK. So a small number of governors get entered into the KvK's Hall of Fame. And there is a voting process to determine who even gets into the Hall of Fame. So there's an election. And the top 300 governors by power ultimately participate in the election of who will be there. So the 20 governors with the highest contribution from the season will automatically become the candidates. And then there is a voting period, and it's at the top 300 by power. And you get to make a speech. And I believe your speech is ultimately like recorded in the Hall of Fame. So you vote and you get some number of votes. It looks like you get 3. It looks like in the screenshot, 3 days left to vote. And you can even see how many votes people have, which is kind of a weird mechanic. But then, like, boom, you make your speech and your speech lives on forever. Wow. Thank you guys for your support. I know I'm awesome. Not only I'm awesome, everyone is awesome. Ha ha ha. Long live Atlantis. Oh, God. You'll love to see it, man. You'll love to see it. I wonder if the developers think this is how people actually talk, or this is like, you know, they know they're just being funny. I think they know they're being funny here. I think this is just sample text and they know they're being funny. So there you go, man. Up next is the Rise of Kingdoms Global Champions Grand Prix. This is going to be pretty hype. Starts in November. I hope to either cast or play in it. But to play in it, you need to be one of the strongest teams that registers by power. So there's going to be a series of battles. I think I took screenshots of all the dates. On 11-4 and 11-5, there'll be 16 teams that battle. Then on 11-11 and 11-12, there'll be more teams that battle. So maybe it's 8 teams across those 2 dates. Then there's battling on 11-18 and 11-19. And then you get to the 11-25, 11-26, which I think is the finals. So the last team standing is the winner. I think leading up to the finals is single elimination. Of course, there's a website with all the rules and all the information. Let me pull that up real quick. So this is the official website, esports-rock.lilith.com. And the rules are here. The team leaderboard is here. You can sign up. The whole explanation is here for how this is going to work out. Oh, and we've got the full schedule. So registration begins on 9/15, ends on 10/13. Participants are finalized by 10/18. The round of 16 is the 4th through the 12th. So I was right. They're going to do, I guess, 8 battles in the first 2 days on the 4th and the 5th. And the, I guess, 11th and 12th, they do the other 4 battles. Then they've got the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the final. So very cool. So by 12-2 and 12-3, we'll have a winner crowned. Kind of exciting. What are the rewards, actually? Ooh, Cleopatra. Is she the reward? What's going on here? Global Champion Trophies? Yo, Champion City themes? Of course. Commemorative avatar frames and medals. Very cool. So you can go to register. I'll include the link in the description in case you want to sign up for this thing. I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation of high-power players for the sort of community teams that come together. And in general, I think it's just going to be really, 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 really tough for the community teams to compete with the top ARC teams that are already formed up. I think that's just going to be really difficult. So that covers the changes coming to Rise of Kingdoms in the mid to far term for the new civilization and what the developers are planning, which I'm pretty hyped about. I think generally these changes are very good. And with regard to changes in Rise of Kingdoms, I would generally say, what are the things that help communities thrive and like do those things? And a part of what we need is engaging KvKs, right? Engaging endgame content. So reworking the events and keeping the game relevant by, you know, reworking some of the graphics for things like, you know, even this Barb Fort is probably going to look a lot more exciting in the update, even the troops and all this stuff. I'm looking forward to it, man. Of course, there are some bigger changes happening in the very short term. We're about to get a new Smite commander. I'm going to live stream tonight where we max, or so I think it's Fluffy Pony is going to max the commander, and we're going to do some testing. So look forward to that. But if you want to see my predictions, card will be in the end screen in just a second. I hope you'll check that vid out. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.